Staying with the courts tonight, former President Jacob Zuma will know tomorrow whether or not he'll be acquitted of corruption, fraud and money laundering charges related to the controversial arms deal. Zuma's lawyers have requested that the Pietermaritzburg High Court grant him an immediate acquittal. That's if they grant their special plea to have lead prosecutor Billy Downer removed from the case. We're joined now by senior politics reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo, who will be tracking that story for us in Pietermaritzburg. Of course, Ziyanda, it's quite a big hurdle that Zuma's legal team is going to try and get over here, and this is around the removal of Billy Downer before we can get to any conversation around a full acquittal on these charges leveled against him.
Absolutely, Kathy, and you'll recall that even during those two-day hearings at the Pietermaritzburg High Court, you would have heard Vim Trengove, who was representing the NPA, of course, because Billy Downer cannot represent himself in this particular matter. He was basically saying that the arguments brought forward by the former president are a regurgitation of his permanent stay of prosecution application. He even said that at least 139 paragraphs were copied and pasted into this special plea. And of course, the argument that's been made by the former president through his lawyers is that one, Billy Downer does not have a title to prosecute. He lacks impartiality and independence. He cited the fact that Billy Downer cried when a decision was taken by the NPA to drop the charges against him. And he's also said that Billy Downer knew about the spy tapes and not doing anything about it. He too is implicated, as well as the fact that Billy Downer was also, he also deposed an affidavit in the DA's case to have the charges against the former president reinstated. He says that this proves that Billy Downer forms part of a long-standing political witch hunt to see him behind bars. And so this is a continuation of that. Of course, this is something that Judge Piet Koen will have to consider in light of some of the arguments being quite similar, I must say, to that of the permanent stay of prosecution. And we now know that last week, Kathy, the former president pressed charges against Billy Downer.
And let's talk about part of the reason why those charges were brought forward, because again, there's been this ongoing debate about the role of Billy Downer in terms of these allegations of him leaking information, particularly medical reports of the former president, to the media. Has that matter actually been settled, at least for now, going into the court case tomorrow? Because I know we've heard from different sides in terms of how that information actually became a part of what is in the, not just in front of the court, but public domain effectively.
Well, you will recall that Vim Trengove actually dealt with this matter in the hearings 3 weeks ago, where he said, well, there was actually a High Court judgment, if not a Supreme Court of Appeal judgment, which said that all matters, that are before the courts be part of public record and that the media should have access to them. But also, the argument that's been made is that the medical records of the former president weren't made public or leaked to the media. It was just a letter from, the military defense doctor who basically said that the former president was terminally ill and it would take months for him to recover. So the exact details of the nature of the illness of the former president hasn't actually been revealed. And you'll recall that Arthur Fraser, the former Correctional Services National Commissioner, was before the courts during the last appearance, where it seemed as though he was going to be asked then to actually divulge the details or make available, at least to the legal teams and the judge, the nature of the illness of the former president, because he wasn't present in court during the last court proceedings. Now, this is actually quite crucial because you'll know that the former president is currently out on medical parole. There are certain conditions that have been set for him. And, you expect that if he's not in court tomorrow, the fact that he was present at that Pietermaritzburg police station to press charges to also become an issue as to whether or not he is terminally ill. You'll recall that when you are granted medical parole, you either need to be physically incapacitated or terminally ill. But another issue here about the importance of Billy Downer is the fact that he was the one who prosecuted against Shabir Shaik in 2004. And if you look at the prosecutions team within the NPA, he's someone who would have institutional memory as to what happened during that trial and being able to link it with this one, especially since he was the same person who was against then NDPP Ziyanda Ngcobo's decision not to try them together. So this is also what some would say is the reason why the former president seems to be targeting Billy Downer, because of the fact that he successfully trialed Shabir Shaik, and the likelihood is that this would happen when this trial begins. But now that he's open charges, it also forms part of a different strategy in a way, because even if they lose tomorrow's court judgment, the next step would be to say, well, even if the trial starts and Billy Downer starts leading the case, it would constantly be raised that, well, this particular prosecutor currently is being investigated by authorities, and he therefore is not in a position to lead this particular trial.
Well, Ziyanda, given what has happened just to get this case before the courts and now having a trial within a trial, one wonders if, in fact, the actual merits of this case will be dealt with, at least in the current year, that's 2021. You can expect more coverage from Ziyanda and the rest of our reporters out in Pietermaritzburg tomorrow.